Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday, and welcome to my session during the Content Control Summit. Hope everyone is having a great time and a great Saturday. I'm very excited to talk to you guys about optimal site structure for your SEO. So here we go. So, just to let you guys know, I love vinyl records. I have a Techniques 1200, which is the DJ standard for turntables. I've had this since college, and I love this turntable so much. And I have my own collection of records, vinyl records, a lot of albums here. They're mostly organized by albums. These are the full-length albums, and I also have a bunch of singles. Disco singles, which I've amassed over here in this corner. So it's getting a little disorderly, but ideally it's not like this, right? Like it doesn't look anything like this mess of records. And I'm sure the person who owns this collection, if they still own this collection, I mean, I would love to spend hours looking through this collection, but I'm sure the owner of this collection knows where every single record is here. But if you just walked into this scene, you would have no idea what is where and what's what. So it is a disorganized mess. And so, but what if it was organized like this, with these lovely tabs to just organize all of these records in such a more logical order, right? So where you could easily find things. Things are categorized. They're put into buckets. But what if it was organized like this? Now, you guys know this. This is the Library of Congress, right? This beautiful building houses so many different books and archives and information, which is ordered in its own with its own ordering system, or own catalog system. So. Why is this important? So let's think about what website structure is. Site structure is how your website pages are linked to one another. And that's important because it does two things. It makes it easy for visitors to navigate the website, and it makes it easy for search engines to find your content. So just like when we were looking at the library, having some organization and tools to be able to find information is important, so that visitors who come to the library are able to find the information they need. Same applies to search engines. So let's talk about the two different types of site structures. One is a flat structure. A flat website structure has the homepage as its homepage, the center, right? And the homepage may link to multiple pages throughout the site. So you may be linking to like an About Us page, a contact form, maybe some other pages of content detailing services you offer. Usually with the flat structure, you have minimal number of clicks to get to the content that you want. A lot of the pages are linked from the home page, and it limits the number of pages and users have to pass through to get to content. So you find this a lot in brochure websites or just simple sites that just have only a handful of pages. On a deeper structure, you may have pages that are organized within categories or within buckets of information, and those categories link to individual pages. You see this a lot with websites that are e-commerce sites, where the store departments or the types of products are all organized in a logical manner, or grouped together with a common theme and a common type of product. So with a deeper site structure, you might have a longer click path to get to those detailed pages. And like I said, the content is grouped in categories and subcategories. it increases the number of pages that search engines usually have to go through in order to find content. And you find these kinds of deep structures with like an e-commerce site or even a large blog or a news site, right? Where they have lots of posts or pages of content or news articles or blog posts. So let's talk about the components of a good site structure. Let's start with the homepage. Wait a minute. What is this? Does anybody recognize this? This was like one of Amazon's first pages when they first came online. And this was their homepage. It was just this with just text, one graphic, and they were selling books, right? And they were highlighting books. You see, like, they're linking to all kinds of important information, like the spotlight. And then there's a link to 1 million titles, right? So they're trying to link to or promote the fact that they have so many books online, right? I believe this was from 1998, possibly. And then there's like a link to some of the services they offer and a link to your account, right? So that was their homepage. This is what their homepage looks like now, right? This actually I took today. So you see that the topic, the focus is not books, right? The focus is on watching TV and finding games. And I guess they must know that I'm a gamer. And so they're suggesting that. And then there's mentions of COVID-19 response and what they're doing. And then there's like, hello, Robert, because that's the name that when I pay for things, that's the name that they like to use. It's always good to know to use that name because then I know if a bill collector is contacting me. So it shows my most recent order, which was a phone stand that I bought for my mom so she wouldn't have to prop up her phone when we use FaceTime. So much different type of homepage, but they're still linking to all their important things that they want to communicate, right? So they're linking to information that is important. When you compare it to 20 years ago, they were linking to books. So the homepage is probably your most visited page of your website. Not always, but probably. It's the navigational hub for your visitors. It's the place where you link to your most important pages, or should link to your most important pages. It also tells search engines which pages you consider to be important. So when you're linking to pages from your homepage, the search engines are saying, oh, wow, so these must be very important to this website. So we're going to link to, we're going to consider these pages that are linked from the homepage to be extremely important. So let's talk about navigation. Navigation is also very important when it comes to site structure. Navigation helps visitors find content on your website, and it also shows the hierarchy of the website. So even when you structure your content and lump them in groups, you can put them all as part of the navigation and making entries for subnavs. And for larger sites, sometimes you want to try to link to every page on the site, but that's not always the best practice. It's always good to just try to get to your top level category pages, or maybe specific products that are like very important or sell the best. So here's an example of eBay's navigation. And eBay is a big site, another e-commerce site, right? And they do a really good job of linking not only to important pages, but they also link to categories and subcategories. And so let's examine this for a second. If you look at the top row, they consider their help section, their deals, their gift cards, how to sell, and their My eBay to be important pages. That's why they put it all the way on the top, right? And then there's the search, and then below that, there's another menu that breaks down the different shopping categories that they have on the site. And a lot of these categories have not changed really in the 20 plus years that they've been around, right? But probably what has changed is the different categories within electronics, right? So using electronics as an example, you see that they're linking to cameras and photo, cell phones, smartwatches, and accessories. They lump those together as a group. iPhones, like specifically linking to the iPhone subcategory. And these are even these are and those iPhones are subcategories of the cell phones category, right? So they know how important the iPhone is, and so they want to make it easy for visitors to find iPhones. So that's why they put it in the navigation. So this helps visitors and users come to the site, and it's also good for SEO. Another navigational element that you can do is you can set up breadcrumbs. This is a breadcrumb for the blog post about this topic, where I mentioned it as a vinyl record collection. And so I have a whole subcategory for SEO post. And so I use a breadcrumbs to help people navigate around. You probably see breadcrumbs quite a bit on e-commerce sites. So if you're on a specific product, you may want to navigate to a higher level to look at other products that are like this product in particular. So it really improves the user experience, especially when people land on the site if they don't come in through the homepage, right? So they may be doing a search for a product and end up on a product page, and then they want to be able to navigate out of it to find some other products. So it also helps search engines understand the site structure and how the site structure is laid out. And Google may even display it within the search results if you have schema for the breadcrumb to identify what the breadcrumb is about. So, which is another topic about schema that is probably best for another discussion. But if you use WordPress, many plugins that create breadcrumbs actually put the schema markup around those breadcrumbs. So let's talk about two taxonomies. And as I mentioned about WordPress, probably the most popular within WordPress, the popular taxonomies are categories and tags. And categories, I want to break this down a little bit because with categories and tags, a lot of people use them interchangeably. So I think it's important to understand that they're actually used for different ways. And so with categories, it's hierarchical organization of content, kind of like a pyramid, so that you can organize content within a specific theme, and then you could break down to lower down the pyramid into subtopics about that one particular topic. And so that you can organize these themes, and then even for larger sites, you may have even sub-themes, just like with the eBay, like on eBay site, where they had cell phones, and then within the cell phones, they have iPhones. And within iPhones, we all know that there's so many different types of iPhones that are available at this point. And so they probably have categories even for the different types of iPhones. And, I find that with larger sites, especially within WordPress, categories tend to get neglected, or they get to categories are just sort of, they're there, right? But I find that you can really get some good optimization when you write content for that category and optimize it. It can serve as a pillar content page. It can serve as your home base for a specific topic, especially if you have several blog posts that are related to the topic. So there's always I always find good opportunities for websites to optimize their category pages. And then you can link to it from your homepage if they're really well optimized, and get some pull for that. So it's definitely something to look into. Now, tags. I find that not every site needs tags. A lot of times tags are used as almost like keyword seeds. You're seeding content with keywords, but they're using tags for it. But truth is, tags are really used for specific details of content. So they have no hierarchy, whereas categories have hierarchy, categories and subcategories. Tags do not. Tags are just tags. A good example of using tags would be for a recipe site. And the recipe may have the category of like lunch, or may have a category of pasta or pizza. But the ingredients themselves may be the tags, because you can always use tomato sauce, not just in pizza, but in other types of dishes as well. And so, like, for most sites, I find that the tags aren't necessary. And a lot of people, because they're using it as keyword, thinking that it would help their SEO by adding these specific keywords or adding keywords through tags. You end up with a bunch of pages that have very little content, or you may have a tag page that has one blog post or one product. So I find a lot of times that tags are not really necessary and end up creating more pages on your site that are just not really interesting to either the visitor or search engines. So, but there are a lot of ways that you can exclude the tags. Either don't use the tags at all, or if you have tags, no index them. Set the no index directive so that when search engines crawl it, they don't add it to their index. And then eventually you can use a robots.txt to exclude them completely from crawling. Okay, so one other aspect of site structure, contextual linking. So I know it sounds like a mouthful, but this describes text that is found within your own content. And I'm talking about text that you link internally. So in this example, I'm using an article from the New York Times talking about Brexit. And this article links to other articles that the New York Times has written about related to Brexit. So that first hyperlink text is the worst parliamentary defeat in modern times. So it's a very descriptive, right? And that is what we call anchor text. So the text that you use to link out is anchor text. So they're very descriptive, right? And it makes it more interesting. And when you read that text that is hyperlinked, you get a good idea as to what the content will be when you visit. So some other examples of this is homepage links. So like your links to content off the homepage. I mean, not links to the homepage, but links off the homepage. Or it's links within the blog post to other blog posts within the site, right? Or other pages within the site. I find a lot of times that blogs don't, or there are a lot of blog posts or people write blog posts and they don't link to other related content that is on their site. And there's a huge opportunity to do that, because not only are you getting your visitors to visit more interesting content on your site, but you're letting search engines know that, hey, there's more information that's related to this topic. And, sometimes those pages get buried within your blog, especially through archive pages. So when you link to these pages, they're related and you give them a benefit, especially if you're linking from a page that gets lots of traffic. So if you have a blog post that ranks very well and you have another blog post that maybe is not, but is relevant to the topic that is ranking well, you can give a little bit of that benefit from that blog post to the other content on your site. So that is a really good way to improve the SEO of your website. Suggested items. So like if you're shopping on an e-commerce site, a suggested item, recommended purchase item, that is also considered a contextual text. And like I said, use descriptive anchor text. If we go back and look at the worst parliamentary defeat in modern times, I mean, pretty dramatic text, right? But it describes what this is. It's so much more interesting than click here, right? How many times have we seen a website that has a link that says click here? And how many times have we seen a website where you see like paragraphs of text and then a link that says click here and then click here and then click here, and all you see is click here. It's not very descriptive, right? There was a time where the Adobe Acrobat was the #1 ranking term for either download now or click here, one of the two, because back in the day, if you guys remember, you would have to click download now to download the PDF, like Adobe Acrobat Reader. And so so many anchor, like the backlinks pointing to it, the anchor text was all either click here or download now. I think it's download now, actually. That's why it ranks so well for that term. Google's algorithm has gotten a lot better, but still, like, it's having, it shows the importance of having anchor text for helping Google understand the context of page. So, what to do next? How do all of us restructure our site? So, I recommend sketching out your site structure. So this involves crawling all the pages on your site. And there are a few tools that can help you do that. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So thinking about your site, like after you crawl your site and you get a good understanding as to how many pages, what are the most important pages on your site, or you determine, let me rephrase that. Once you've crawled the pages on your site, ask yourself, what are the most important pages? What are the pages that I want people to see? What is my most important content, right? And make a list. Make a list of those important pages. Are they linked from the homepage? So are these important pages that are important either for your business or important for getting out there? Are they all linked from your homepage? Because if they are, then Google understands, and Bing too. Can't forget Bing. If they're linked from your homepage, then the search engines determine that it's important content if you're going to link from your homepage. But don't overdo it. Can you group these pages together? Are they is there content that can be lumped together in a group, and then you can create like a guide, or what we call, like, if you follow the HubSpot model of pillar posts, and you create like a piece of content that unites all these other smaller pieces of content? Or can you consolidate some of these pages? Do you have 2 pages that have very similar pieces of content, right? They could be competing for the same keyword, so or keywords. So is it possible to consolidate them and make them better just by merging the 2? And as you start thinking about this, like, sketch it out. Like, you don't necessarily have to use a computer to do this, or software. Like, sketch it out. Think about your important paper. Like, model it out. You can flow chart it almost, or go back to like the structure that I showed with the homepage and categories and subcategories, and start thinking about how you want to structure your content more. Create the hierarchy with categories. So, it could be using category pages if you're using WordPress, using categories within WordPress, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You can just create a page. And if you're using pages within WordPress, if we're still talking about WordPress, you can make sub pages under those pages, and have the folder structure in the URL follow a certain model. So, but you don't even have to do that. It's really all about how the pages link to one another. That is most important. Although having a nice URL structure, using your slugs and using a nice URL structure does look good. Like, I feel like it looks good, and it helps search engines understand the structure as well. but it's really all about linking. And you don't want to go too deep. So you don't want to bury your content too far where you can't find it. And there's tools that help you do that too. And we'll get into that next. So these are some tools that are available to to crawl your site and show you the structure of the site. Screaming Frog SEO is a great tool. It is a premium tool. You have to pay for the software to get the full features. But it is free for any sites that are under 500 pages. So it's a great tool. It'll show you it'll give you visualization of your site structure, and it will tell you how deep some of these pages are. And if you get really crafty with it, you can find pages that aren't even linked. So like pages that may be in Google's index, Screaming Frog will sync up with Google Analytics in your analytics profile, and it will tell you. It'll produce a report that tells you pages that it found within Search Console or found within Google Analytics and are not linked from anywhere within your site. So those are opportunities to link to content that you may not be aware of. Power Mapper is a premium tool. Dino Mapper is even for larger sites. These are both online tools that you can use. And then there's like a free tool. It's from Ninja. I forget who it is. I'm visualizing it. But anyways, it is free. And if your site is under 100 pages, you can get a visualization for free using that tool. It's an online tool. But Screaming Frog, I love it. I feel like it's more than just an SEO tool. It is, I think it really helps web developers. If you're building sites, if you're a developer, designer, but you're working with the sites and tinkering with it, it gives you so much information beyond just SEO information. So recommended tool. It's worth about $150 to purchase a year. So warning. So all this being said, if you go through redoing your website, redoing the structure, especially if you're changing your URLs or if you're consolidating content, you want to make sure that you have 301 redirects in place. So 301 redirects tells search engines and web browsers and visitors that pages have moved and the new page has moved and this is the new home for this page. So as you're consolidating content or restructuring your URLs or changing your categories and you're changing basically the URL structure. So you want to make sure that you don't lose any benefit you get from those pages, especially if those pages have links. So it helps with search engines, but also helps users. So like, let's say you have a piece of content that you move to a new location, but it has links pointing to it from other websites. You don't want to have a 404 error appear, right? So using a 301 redirect plugin, I use redirection for WordPress, but there are other 301 redirect tools. You can also do it through htaccess. So you can manually enter those in. That's what we used to do back in the day before there was plugins and before there was WordPress. We would go into the htaccess file and set up those redirects ourselves, and you can still do that. I think WP Engine is changing that, but that's but most websites most web hosts you can do that. Also use Google Search Console to find broken links. Also Bing Webmaster Tools as well. But if you don't have your site in Google Search Console, I highly recommend it. XML sitemaps. So sitemaps are also a good way if you have a sitemap already. The easiest way to tell if you have a sitemap already is to put in your domain name and /sitemap.xml. And sometimes you'll have a sitemap appear, sometimes not. If you have a plugin like Yoast for WordPress, it'll automatically generate a sitemap for you. But the sitemap is not those old sitemaps that you're used to from back in the day, where you would go to a page and it had a sitemap, right? Like, or you would see the sitemap link in a footer of a website. Those were also like sort of SEO helpful things that can help websites find content. But now sitemap, an XML file of your sitemap, is the best way to let search engines know, here's my content, here it is, here's a whole map of it, crawl away, right? So you can send them to Google, you can send them to Bing, and I recommend registering your site with Search Console if you haven't done so already. Because not only can you submit your sitemap, but it'll give you 404 error reports. It'll give you all kinds of site notifications. It'll tell you if it has trouble crawling pages. It'll tell you if you have malware. You can look at keyword data. What keywords are people searching for when they find your site in the search results? It tells you average positions. It gives you all kinds of great information. And it's different than analytics in that it shows you how Google sees your website and understands your website, versus analytics, which is more about what people do on your website when they get there, when they visit. Bing Webmaster Tools is also, I highly recommend it because it's very easy to set up a profile there. Bing Webmaster Tools will import your Google, the sites that you've registered in Google Search Console. So if you manage multiple websites and you're like me, and you want to easily import all those profiles, you can do that very easily within Bing Webmaster Tools, and that's a new feature as of last year. So, and you can do a lot of the same things you do with Google, you can do with Bing. And I know Bing is a very small percentage of website visitors, but people still use it. People still use Bing, so it's still important. So, in summary, link to the best content on your site from your homepage. Not to every piece of content you have, but like the best stuff, stuff you want to feature and profile, and make it prominent. And I'm talking more about like within the content itself, not in the header and the footer, but actually within the content. That is where the benefit is within the content itself. Make your navigation clear and easy to find. So put your best pages also in the navigation, because people tend to go to the navigation when they want to find something. If they have trouble finding it on the page itself, then they may want to navigate around. So make it clear, easy to find, and don't get too crazy with it. Use good anchor text to describe your internal links, and use internal links. So if you have a great piece of content that's doing well in Google, and you have another piece of content that's very, very much related but not doing as well, link to it and use good text to describe what that content is that you're linking to. Avoid click here, avoid here, avoid now. Make it clear what the content is about. Organize complementary content into groups. So like grab your pages, figure out what works together, right? And maybe you can create a guide that is all about these widgets. And maybe you were talking about all the different components of this widget, but you never actually talked about the widget itself. That's a prime example of how to create one piece of content that links to all these other pieces of content. And then you can link to that content from your homepage. And the last thing I want to say is that if you make it easy for visitors to find your content, then it'll be easy for search engines to find it too. More and more, Google is looking at user experience as part of its algorithm. And when you make it easy for users to find your content and you make it spectacular, then the search engines will find it spectacular too. Thank you very much for sticking with me and talking about site structure. I believe we're going to be in the in the live chat to answer any questions you may have, and enjoy the rest of the summit.